Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. It is about 10:35 on November 1st. You are joined, as always, by Kirk Henderson and my co-editor over at Mavs Moneyball, Josh Bowe. Josh, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing pretty good. My hands are still shaky. I'm probably going to have shake voice during this podcast, but I'm going to keep it together because I am a nothing if not a professional.
So, for those of you who have no idea what the hell Josh is talking about, because we have a significant overseas audience,
oh yeah,
the Texas Rangers won the World Series. And for the people that are not in the Dallas area, it's really difficult to explain that and the Mavericks are third and maybe fourth on the local sports pecking.
And to be honest, it's not the Mavericks are third or fourth. It's Dirk was third or fourth.
Yes. This is Texas baseball, football state. Basketball is very important here too. But it generationally, maybe 30 years from now, that'll be a different thing. But they're like in East Texas, Little League games are broadcast over the radio. Like this is a Texas or this is a baseball state. And it's really like the people come out of the woodwork. Like you don't have like diehard Rangers fans. You don't have like diehard Rangers fans that you talk about in your life, but there are people who grew up listening, watching the baseball that have it on all the time. And so it's just a casual sport for a lot of people. But I will say that in this area, it is particularly huge. And for the fact that they've done what they did this year is really remarkable. We're not baseball guys. We're not going to settle on. I mean, you are. I'm not. Josh used to be a really big baseball guy. But I'm really happy for a lot of our friends, a lot of our half of our staff, like more than half, like 3/4 of our staff was clearly watching the game tonight. I created a whole separate Slack channel because I didn't want to have to read their baseball stuff. But I'm really happy for people, particularly. The Rangers were one of 5. I read this on ESPN. The Rangers were one of 5 franchises that hadn't won a World Series. So,
and they've existed for a pretty long time. I mean, I think they were the current, longest World Series drought. I mean, technically they started in Washington, but the franchise was, I think, started in 1961, at least in Washington, and then they moved to Texas in the early 70s or 1969 or something. So. Once the Cubs and the Red Sox won, they've been the kind of the odd man out. So this is just, it's nuts, man. It's nuts. Yeah. And I don't, we're going to talk about the game. So I'm sorry. We'll just get this out of the way right away because I can't help it. But
it's exciting.
Like, my family has had season tickets to the Rangers forever. My older brother just told me on Twitter that it was actually longer than I thought when they were in I thought it was from 2000 because that's just when my brain remembers it because I was 11 in 2000. But he was like, no, we had them since the old Arlington Stadium. So that's like the 80s. Basically, I think since my parents moved here in the 80s. So they had taken tickets forever. I literally from the year 2000 to maybe 2013, I went to I averaged 70 Ranger games a summer because we had season tickets and they were good seats. Like, what are you going to do? Like, I was a kid, there's not much, you know what I mean? Like, my dad's like, hey, you want to go to the game? I'm like, yeah. Like, when you're that age, you don't have a lot of entertainment options. Not that I didn't like baseball. My older brother played baseball all the way through. He played for Texas A&M actually. I don't think I knew that. No, I don't talk about that stuff a lot. So yeah, he was really, he was a good player. So I've watched baseball in all shapes and forms for a lot of my years on this planet. And So it's just, there's an emotional, there's a familial connection to it that I don't really have with the Mavericks, because the Mavericks were kind of like they were like my thing.
Yep.
So it's just emotion. It was just emotional when that last out happened. A lot of memories just kind of hit me all at once. It was a lot.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm really glad you got to watch, and that is why we started a little bit later than we intended to. I'm also, Josh can actually tell you. Josh can speak to this. One of my main strengths as a person is I am somehow remarkably good at predicting where I will be later in the day. And so I still need, it's like, oh, we'll start it at this point and then I'll always be there. It's scheduling is one of the things decent at, but I'm still getting the knack of scheduling these things right. It probably needs to be about a 10:15 start time for games that start at 7:30, which is ridiculous because that means 2 hours and 45 minutes after the game starts. But hey, we'll get this figured out. And plus, tonight I wanted everybody to celebrate a little bit. Obviously, the Dallas Mavericks defeated the Chicago Bulls 114-105. Now, you have a second thing that is worth touching on for like a significant portion of our fan base for why you also were more focused on the Rangers game tonight. Why don't you tell us what that was?
Oh, because for the second consecutive Mavericks game, Bally Sports was down for about almost the whole game. I think it came back on sometime in the second half, but it was down for basically all the Nets game, down for this game. And if you're not following, if you don't have cable, this is literally the only way to watch the Mavericks if you live in DFW. So didn't really have much of a choice, and I know there's legal streams, and I appreciate a listener or a reader DM'd me and DM'd me in an illicit stream that I may or may not have partaked in. Do not want that on the record. You cannot come after me, feds. But it just, I don't like doing that because I don't have patience for technology. So like all those ads and stuff that I just don't want to do it. I would rather just pout and not watch it than do that. So I wanted to watch, but forces of nature said no tonight.
Considering your one of your many jobs in life is watching and talking about the Dallas Mavericks, they're making it particularly difficult.
They really are.
It's so funny because it's like the Mavericks clearly must have signed a deal with Bally so long ago that they cannot legally get out of, because all these other teams now have one-off options where they manage their own stuff. And like the Mavericks, I don't know what the payment situation is or employment situation, but like these Bally people are all basically Mavericks employees. You got Devin Harris, Dana Larson, Jeff Skinwade pops up. Mark Stein is an occasional person. It's like they all work with the team. So it's like bouncing over to a different service that the Mavericks own strikes me as something that they'll hopefully get to do sooner than later. Because it's got to be maddening if you're watching. If you're
not watching,
right? So, well, let's actually talk about the game 8 minutes into the podcast. So I will kind of start and give everybody like a brief rundown, and then we will, you can kind of needle me.
I can quiz you.
Yeah. So this was easily the ugliest Dallas Mavericks game of the year for Luka Doncic. He looked tired. And then the way the game was refereed was essentially FIBA rules. There was that. There's that one ref that's in the GIF, the where Luka's flirting with her. It looks like the way it's edited is it looks like he's like smiling and flirting with her. She was the ref tonight, and she and the rest of the crew allowed a lot of Luka physicality. I didn't necessarily think anything was like untoward. It was just a physical game against Luka, and he got sick of it. Second straight game with 6 turnovers, which is really something for him. But then something pretty remarkable happened, something we are not privy to in many times of Luka Doncic era basketball, with Kyrie also sitting on the bench for essentially, is this third straight game, kind of with foot issues, second straight game.
Yeah, second straight game.
Kyrie has been a non-factor in this season is my point. He also didn't play this game, and somebody else stepped up. And then somebody else stepped up, and then 3 or 4 more guys stepped up. I mean, the first one on the page that jumps out at you is Grant Williams, who tied his career high with 24 points. Really played a smooth, under control basketball game where the game came to him. And then Tim Hardaway had one of those Timmy games. It's not as evident in the box score I mean, obviously he has 24 points, 8 of 15 shooting, 7 of 13 from 3. Like it's
he took 2 2-pointers. That's awesome.
Yes,
that's good. That's actually good for considering the way he's been shooting 2-pointers the last 2 years. That's awesome.
I mean, 24 points in 27 minutes. So it's like maybe I'm a little wrong about the box score, but it's like in the game there were a couple of no, yes moments. Like I kid you not, he tried to do the Luka Doncic. He gets the rebound. This one possession is in the third quarter, I'm pretty sure. He gets the rebound. He dribbles all the way down the court, dribbles it himself, doesn't pass to anyone, dribbles to the Luka post-up spot, kind of the short corner, and then proceeds to throw up an awful shot. It was nuts.
Did he make
Mavericks?
it?
Go ahead.
Did he make that shot? Sorry.
No.
Okay.
No, so it's like there's a lot of giveth and taketh away. But then the third person who was really like, I probably should have listed him first in terms of impact. Derrick Lively it's not that Derrick's on the come up. Derrick is here. Lively is here. He is the Mavericks starter. He is looking like the surefire steal of the draft. His box score was ridiculous, at least in my opinion. So in 33 minutes, 7 points, 13 rebounds. Of those 13 rebounds, 7 were offensive. And then here's the real kicker: 6 assists.
And one turnover.
One turnover. And the turnover, I wonder if they took it away from him, or I wonder if it's the one I'm thinking about, because he got like the ball, like a loose ball in a fast break. He took one dribble and somebody stripped him. It didn't even really feel like he had possession. He had one. He was basically big boying every single bull. He somehow didn't match up, at least that I was seeing, against Andre Drummond too much, who only played 12 minutes. Vucevic had 20 rebounds himself. It was like kind of an interesting game, but it felt like that Lively was getting his hands or a hand on everything. And sort of one of the key swing points in the game happened in the fourth quarter, where he's fighting over people and he just uses his length so well.
He's so long, man.
Yeah, at the 7-minute mark, there's a left side of the baseline. You'll probably see the play on Twitter later. He reaches over someone, and one hand, it's not like I'm just flinging this and hope someone gets it. He's falling out of bounds. One hand grabs, turns and throws it to Tim Hardaway at the top of the key, who sinks the three-pointer and gets bulldozed by Alex Caruso for a 4-point play. And from there on out, the Mavericks, like the Bulls retook the lead. It was 96-94. The Mavericks called a timeout. They come out of that timeout and essentially went on, if I'm doing my math right, they went on it was a 20-9. I need to change that in my recap. It was a 20-9 run to end the game. And the run was really fantastic because Luka was I don't disengage is fair. Man had 10 assists and he probably could have had more. But what was crazy was who went on the run for the Mavericks, where they played a closing lineup of Josh Green, Grant Williams, Hardy, Lively, and Luka. It was weird. Hardy gets this little stop and go layup to go down, which was just absolutely gorgeous. That might have happened earlier in the quarter, but it's really sticking out in my head. But then there's threes by Williams. There's another 3 by Hardy. And then there's a 3 by Josh Green, who in that put the game out of reach. It was 100-109.
His only basket was that basket.
But Green was horrendous. Like, this was probably Green's worst game since the stretch where he got put on the bench following the the Caruso thing. Not Caruso, the other the Laker white guy who got up in his grill. It was, and the fact that he was in the game was so fascinating because he just wasn't very good. He had 2 turnovers on awful jump passes. He's kind of out there being Josh chicken his head cut off. And that they won the game with Luka orchestrating, but not necessarily needing to dominate, was just amazing. I was as excited watching this as I have been at anything that they've done this year, because a couple of these wins, the Spurs win was amazing, but it felt like they were sort of stealing something. And who else? Like, it's the
Nets win was especially like they were stealing something.
Luka just going nuts. I mean, they pulled away from the Grizzlies. This one felt good because their defense was there. They did a good job on DeRozan. Derrick Jones Jr., who I haven't even mentioned, was really, really good. I had a great time watching this game. Hopefully you'll get to see some highlights.
Yeah.
I love that Panda Hank is like, I'm not going to be able to do highlights after every game. And so far he's done highlights after every game. It's we'll see there. But yeah, I couldn't have enjoyed myself more for a game that I was sort of dreading. It felt like a trap game because Zach LaVine started 5 from 5 from 3. And it was like, oh Jesus.
Yeah, and the Bulls have given them trouble over the last 3 or 4 years. So I can understand that. So just I'm going to jump off some stats that I'm kind of looking at in the box score and kind of kick it to you to give me some better context. So once again, fourth quarter, they outscore the Bulls 33-22. So they outscore them by 11. Entering this game, I looked it up. They were plus 12 overall. Outscored teams by 12 points in the fourth quarter, which is fourth. Which entering tonight was fourth best in the NBA. So like. This is like a complete reversal from last season. They are dominating the fourth quarter, where last season they were just kind of like limping to the end of games and losing these coin flip games. So, I mean, what is it about, so that stood out to me. Derrick Jones Jr. scoring. I feel like Derrick Jones Jr., there's going to be a stat where it's like every time he scores more than this, like 10 points, the Mavericks win like 80% of their games. Because I feel like if he gives you that, like that's like found money. I mean, I can't believe he scored 22 against the Grizzlies, I think, and now 17. He's making his threes at an acceptable rate. He seems to, the transition game with him seems like he's doing things that's like he's not a better player, NBA player than Dorian Finney-Smith or Reggie Bullock or anything like that. So no, don't construe what I'm about to say, but the Mavericks just haven't had athletes, I think, on their roster like him since Luka's been on the team. And I think it just goes to show just how much Luka can get out of a guy if you just surround him with the right pieces or just good enough players. That's kind of my Grant Williams take too. That's like he looked great. All 7 of his field goals were threes. And I'm, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure were they all spot up threes, or did he create any of himself? I'm sure they were all spot up threes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So and it's like, it just goes to show wow, acquiring players that were already good before they joined the Mavericks.
You wrote that piece. You wrote that piece last year where it's like Kyrie, like Luka is accentuating Kyrie. So it's like, well, hey, what if we just got better players?
Right. What if he wasn't trying to make mediocre players good and made good players better? I think that's what we're seeing with Grant Williams. Like the way he's getting the most open looks he's ever had in his entire life. And it's awesome that they acquired a high volume role player shooter that's a high percentage shooter and not like, well, he's like 33%. But when he plays with Luka, we're really going to develop him and make him better. It's like, no, just get guys that are already good and let Luka make him thrive. That's been a lot of fun to watch, even though I didn't watch tonight. Like Grant Williams is going to absolutely thrive as a shooter this season. It's going to be the numbers he's going to put up. He's going to be in the 3-point contest, I bet, or something like that. Cause he's going to get practice level looking shots.
Yeah.
Cause he's never played with the Celtics did not.
They didn't have point guard.
Yeah. Not only has he not,
they were amazing, but it's just, it's a different kind of amazing.
Yeah. So there's that. And then the dominance in the fourth quarter was really cool. Lively stat line. Yeah. Talk to me about Lively a little bit more and the 6 assists. Like he was just making plays out of the short
Chicago basically was like, Luka's not going to beat us. We're going to send a double at him at every possible opportunity. Like if he's not going downhill, we're going to send a double. And there's a couple of Lively assists where Lively's essentially, would you call it short roll if he's catching it in the middle of the key in addition to somebody else from the opposite base, like who's cutting down the baseline? Yeah. So he made a number of great reads in the short roll, but they weren't necessarily one-touch plays. He got one from Luka where he had to do a wraparound pass where he basically pumps high in the middle of the lane and then wraps it around the defender and dumps it in for Derrick and other Derrick, maximum Derrick. And I just the playmaking element and sort of the visual of it all, like he's looking. Willie Cauley-Stein used to try to do shit that he simply wasn't capable of fucking doing, and would there's it feels like he is doing the things that the Dallas Bigs have brought in for years want to do, only Lively is actually capable of facilitating these passes because he's making the pass before. So he's doing the thing that all great playmakers do, where he's seeing where the play is going and not just simply throwing it to the open man on some of these reads. Like there's a there involved. I'm really impressed.
Yeah, that's great. I think even if you had really high expectations for Lively, this is nuts what he's doing in this type of role. And I think this really goes back to what we talked about when he was drafted. I'm going to remember this forever as long as he's on the Mavs. Like in his his first interviews, he just got taken, with the 12th overall pick. He's a lottery pick, which, a lot of those guys taken in the lottery, those are guys that were like the best players on their college team. These are like number one options, playmakers, those kind of guys. And if they're not that, they're guys that teams think can be that a little bit. To hear him after the draft just talk about like, what are you going to, he's like, I need to set screens. I need to finish. I need to defend. You don't hear a lot of top 12, top 10 picks talk about like how excited they are to set screens or learn how to set
and
screens.
He can't set screens.
No, I know, but he wants to. He's going to learn.
Do it. That's amazing.
He knows his role better than any first round rookie taken at this level than I think I've seen in quite some time. Because let's be honest, he does not have a glamorous job. This is not something bigs want to do. They, I don't blame them. They want to shoot three. They want to be Joel Embiid or they want to be Nikola Jokic because that's what they're watching on their TVs every night. Like for him to come in and already be like, okay, I know what I am. I'm not going to do what I can't. That's stuff that guys usually don't learn till like their second NBA contract.
And I'm going through it. Like you look at these guys, and I'm sorry, we're just going to do this right now. Yeah. Of the people that were drafted in this first round right now, Wembanyama's suffering from the fact that they don't have a point guard, but he still is been doing some pretty incredible stuff. But even still, I am more impressed by what Lively has done than what Wembanyama has done. Then I go through and kind of look at other guys. The Thompson twins, Asar Thompson might be the best rookie right now. It's early, 4 or 5 games, not really thinking about that. But
Wemby's still averaging 16 and like 8.
But it's
shortchange him there.
I don't know. I really feel with what, and granted, completely different situation, completely different quality of players, but it's an expectations thing. It's like Asar Thompson and Derrick Lively are kind of really leading the way in a way when I'm going through the rest of this, and I just find myself shocked at. And granted, that'll change over the course of the year, but I wrote this in the recap. My mental hope for Lively was in the back 40 games when the Mavericks had hopefully gotten done playing 500 basketball. He would have earned enough trust from Jason Kidd to be put into the game regularly to play 20 to 25 minutes. Instead, we're at game 4, and he is the definitive starter, and they need him. He bounced back from an awful foul trouble game the other night to play this kind of performance, and I'm really excited. It's fun to wonder what the guy's going to do next, because even if he continues to basically offensive rebound and do putback dunks and the occasional, nice read in the short roll or swinging and setting screens, that's all this team needed. He's so much bigger and than Dwight Powell, because that was kind of readily apparent. I friend of the show, Kenny, has loved to needle me for years about Drummond, and Drummond just big boy Dwight Powell so badly in this game. Now Powell was finished with 5 points on hitting all 5 of his free throws, but it's just size matters, and skilled size is almost impossible. And it's just, he's so much bigger than the next Dallas Mavericks big. And, I don't think you knew this, but, Maxi Kleber left the game after he hurt his foot and was pissed. Like, he never came back. I don't even know if we saw him on the bench.
Poor guy and his lower body injuries.
I mean, he's just, your body starts to break down. Dirk Nowitzki gave us a unrealistic expectation on what the lifespan of a German big. But this core group, like Powell played fine. Like Powell played 10 minutes, Lively played 31. Like that's what happened tonight. Like and they've not even needed to go super small. And we're 25 minutes in the show. I'm not shilled at all. But I want to give another stat when we come right back. I'm going to take a break here for a second because I'm going to ask you guys to go like the stream. Liking the stream helps Josh and I. It's important. We've been getting a few more people in here every game. I think that's because the Mavericks are generating a little more interest. I'm surprised there's this many folks in here with the Rangers winning tonight, but I'm really pleased that you guys were able to join us. While you're liking the stream, if you would hit that subscribe button, that is additionally very important to Josh and I. We have a kind of arbitrary goal that I picked for our stream that I would like to get at 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We started in April, terrible time to start, but we're already close to 2,000. So maybe we can do it. Would really appreciate that. And while we're here, if anybody would like to sponsor the video portion of our show, we can do that. All right, that's all the shilling I'm going to do tonight. I'm tired. Here's the other cool stat, Josh. Guess who's the number one team in the Western Conference in the NBA?
I believe that may be your Dallas Mavericks.
Dallas Mavericks, who are one of two teams that are still undefeated after the Boston Celtics throttled the Pacers 155 to like 12 or whatever the heck the score was. But
when did the Nuggets lose?
They lost tonight. They played one of them, and that doesn't bode well for the Mavericks come Friday
because they'll be pissed off.
They lost to the They lost to the Wolves and only scored 89 points.
Oh my god!
So, yeah, it was Jamal Murray had a bad game, and things just went from bad to worse. And that's
so they got their bad game out of the way before Friday. That's never fun. But
yep. Well, I'm trying to think what else from this game that was particularly of interest. There are a lot of guys played at least some minutes. It felt like Kidd reached down into his bench a little bit more. With Kyrie Irving out, though, they're reaching, and I'm really hopeful he plays Friday. I just have a feeling that they're targeting Friday for his return.
Yeah, because they knew they could get this game tonight.
If they could steal these, that's just all for the better. And last year when they tried to steal anything, they couldn't. But the Luka 40 minutes was problematic.
Yeah.
Everybody else has a pretty good minute total, though, if you're going through this.
Yeah, and I mean, the Luka thing is just, without Kyrie, I know, we talk about Josh Green being a better playmaker, and Kidd doesn't really seem to be wanting to give Seth a big role or Dante Exum a big role. So if those guys aren't playing a lot and Kyrie's out, he's your point. He's the only, he's the only point guard. So he probably, even during a bad game, he kind of has to play, because you can't, when Josh is having a game like he had tonight, you can't trust. I don't think you can trust him to run offense without Luka on the floor, and Jaden is more of a scorer. I'm curious if the Exum Seth, how those Exum Seth minutes go as we keep going down the season, because Seth has not played as much as I thought he would.
Yep.
But Tim has been kind of doing what he needs to do, and if he's doing that means there's less of a need for Seth to play a lot, I guess.
Well, and now we're kind of getting to the point that we get to every year of how integral is Tim to this team. I would argue pretty damn important to this point. And I know that probably maddens some fans who just want to be freed of the experience, but I don't see, they're not replacing Tim's production with Seth unless Seth is going to come in. Like, Seth Curry is a shooter, but I wouldn't classify him as a out and out gunner. He's a smart basketball player.
He's not going to get up as many shots as Tim does, which I know pisses people off, but it's
a value.
Key. Yeah.
It's a value. It's hard to describe. And you want, Tim's irrational confidence drives everybody nuts, but it brings a certain element to this offense that I think you need.
It's a weapon that has to be respected when defenses play. And look, the Bulls made 11 threes, the Mavericks made 20, and Tim makes 7 of those 20. It's just, the reason the Mavericks beat teams is because they usually have significantly superior 3-point shooting, and Tim is the best high volume shooter on the roster. So you take that away, he's absolutely part of the fuel that fires this thing. So if you want to trade him, I'm not against it, but they just have to make sure that they have a contingency in place, whether it's something they get back in the trade, whether they think, Seth and Jaden can do a little, they have to be confident that they can replicate his production if they ever move him, because like it or not, like you said, he's a part of the engine. He helps makes this thing go as well as it does. Because when you have Luka, He's one of the best, if not the best, 3-point shot creator in the league. You need guys that are going to want to shoot a lot and can make them. And that's Tim, whether you like it or not. And so that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah. Well, now we've kind of, so the Mavericks started 4-0 for the fourth time in franchise history. Really pretty amazing. A softer point in the schedule hurts, but frankly, just winning games that
they weren't winning these games last year.
Yeah, and it's their fourth straight clutch game. Did you realize that the last game was a clutch game because it was under 5? It was 5 points at the 4:57 mark.
Yeah, the Grizzlies went on a run at like the perfect time just to make it qualify, which is pretty funny.
Pretty amazing. So fourth straight clutch victory. It's the schedule gets a little bit more ridiculous from here. We've talked about it once, but it's worth talking about again. There's this late night, Friday night ESPN game, 9 p.m. start time, but at least it's on Friday. Then Charlotte, which has been feisty. Orlando, who looks like a playoff team. I don't know if you have you seen Orlando play?
I haven't seen them play, but I've been like following their box scores, and they mean business this year for sure.
I'm concerned. They might big boy the Mavericks in a certain way because they just have a lot of length. Then the Clippers look out of their minds. Zion played his worst game tonight of the year. They play the Pelicans in a back-to-back series there in New Orleans, which Luka Doncic being in New Orleans to his own devices for like 4 days, that sounds terrible. Starting out 4-0, they've given themselves a little bit of padding. They've got a pretty, I wouldn't call it tough in so much as challenging. Like there's some spots where it's like where things can spiral, but you mentioned this a little bit earlier about Grant Williams, and the broadcast keeps mentioning it, and I think we have to acknowledge it. Grant Williams playing a vocal leader role in a way that is helpful to this team. When he came to the Mavericks, I was more than concerned because and this is not just stuff I'm hearing like quietly, like Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo talked about this on the Ringer podcasts, that Grant Williams was actively annoying to his teammates. Like that's the thing they talked about. Now, with some hindsight, I think I can say that if that's the case, it was because he's like the eighth man and they had kind of a weird situation with a rookie coach, Marcus Smart, and there was some clashing elements to that team. But where Grant Williams sits in the pecking order, which is essentially third behind Luka and Kyrie, I think that allows him to be that inspirational leader guy that basically says, guys, get your shit together. And I think the Mavericks have needed that. They've needed that since JJ Barea left the team.
Yeah, because Luka is not necessarily, I don't know if he's that guy.
Maybe he will when he's older, but he's not yet, and that's fine.
Right. He's more, I mean, I know it's not fair to compare Dirk and Luka because they're different. They're different players, they're different people. But this is something I feel like they have in common where, they're both leaders, but they're not necessarily like rah-rah guys. They're more like, hey, let's get our shit together and get to work. Like they're kind of like a lead by example kind of guys, maybe. And you need someone that can speak up a little bit in the locker room for sure. So, hey, as long as it's working, it might be one of those things. The only thing I'm worried about is it how effective is it? Because they're going to lose. They're going to go on a losing streak. There's going to be a stretch where they lose 3 out of 4 or 2 straight, 3 straight, 4 straight, whatever. Every team goes through this, even the good ones. That's when it gets tested. Like, that's when you kind of know what kind of locker room I think you really have. So it's all fun when you're winnings, but we'll see what happens when they hit their first rough patch. But I think with the way this team is gelling together, I think they'll be able to handle that a lot better than last season. That's for sure.
Hope so, man. Hope so. All right. We're at a little over 30 minutes. Sorry if you guys hear honking in the background. My small dog somehow has caught kennel cough for the second time.
So sorry. That's outrageous.
Well, she's all right. Like she doesn't she's going to live. It's not like it's just a horrible noise. She sounds like a goose when she coughs. It's ridiculous. And we've not been sleeping because she's just keeping us up. I'll be back in the live show here, probably about 15 minutes. Hopefully maybe keep this one a little bit shorter because I'm waxed. But, if you guys want to come talk, once you exit out of this show, click the notify me button on the other thing that's posted live. It says Mavs Party. We've had 4 in a row. nice time. Didn't have many 4 in a rows. Certainly didn't have any after December 1st or after January 1st last year.
Yeah.
So we're gonna maybe hang out, talk a little ball. People can get their takes off, and then we'll go to bed, and then we'll see what Friday brings against the Denver Nuggets. You got anything else?
I think that's it. Let's get out of here.
All right, guys. This has been Kirk Anderson and Josh Bowe. Thanks so much for hanging out. Everybody go enjoy the Rangers World Series victory, and we will talk to you later. Have a great rest of your week. Go Mavs.